All right, so today's workshop is about practicing photography to increase awareness, curiosity, and acceptance, and all of those things increase well-being. So a teeny little blurb about me. My name's Angela Goodhart. I've been a hobbyist photographer since I was 10, for a really long time. It's over 40 years, in case you're curious. And then I became a professional photographer in 2009 so that I could earn some money while staying home with my family. I've been teaching photography to high school students since 2014. I wrote a book in 2019, 18, and I'm working on a photography course, which is currently in beta tests and should be ready next month. When I started photography, it was for many of those same reasons that you guys mentioned, preserving memories of people and events and places that are really beautiful, to share those memories with others through Christmas cards or calendars or prints on the wall, as a creative outlet, and also for community and connection, online groups, and also photo clubs and professional associations, etc. And it's only in recent years that I realized that it was also applicable to increasing well-being, but it takes a certain mental shift, because the emphasis is not so much this pressure of creating a good photograph as much as it is just sort of honoring, like listening to your intuition and your vision and honoring that and getting curious about that. I want to start by talking about awareness and curiosity. And to that end, I want to begin with a quick video. I love this video so much because the first time I saw it, I was completely, I did not see that gorilla. I was determined to get the correct number of basketball passes. So basically what this shows me is how our brain's attention, it's filtering the world, right? Like our eyes take everything in, but our brains are filtering what's important and what's not important. Your brain is basically assessing for threats in the present, so it'll just sort of name things that aren't a threat and move on. And I think about this like in terms of children. They notice everything because their brains are not in this habit of naming and labeling and like, okay, I know what that is, moving on. Just they're curious. And so like I might notice that my neighbor has a tree, and that's it. Like I see it and I'm on my way to the mailbox, and so I barely register it. Whereas kids, they see the trees, they collect the leaves, they notice if it dropped acorns or flower petals, they will notice the texture of the bark, they might climb it, they'll notice insects on it, or if sap is oozing. Like they're seeing everything about that tree. They're not just labeling tree and moving on. So to practice photography in a more mindful way, we need to turn off that thinking, labeling brain that's filtering our environment or looking for like the perfect picture or whatever. We just, sort of turn that off and allow our own attention and awareness to sort of guide what we photograph. How do you do that? Basically, you can't photograph what you don't see. And so that's why you really need to turn that brain off so that you can start seeing everything that's around you and then make an image. How do you give your mind a break? The way that I turn my brain off is to get back into my physical body and to pay attention to my senses. Because then if my brain is thinking about what my body's experiencing, it's not worrying about what I have to cook for dinner or where I have to go or what's next, or worrying about whatever is happening tomorrow. And it's not ruminating about the past or, feeling anxious or guilty about whatever. So the first thing I do, I always start with my sense of hearing, but you could start with any of them. Well, I guess even before that, like when I'm ready to take pictures, I will maybe take a few deep breaths. There's like a bajillion breathing exercises. You can explore them, or you can just take some deep breaths and exhale slowly, and then start tuning into your senses. So the first thing I'll do is ask myself, what do I hear? And if I'm in a city, I might hear horns or people talking, or just all the clangs of the city or airplanes. And then if I'm in the woods, I might hear birds or leaves rustling or water. or animals in the bushes or whatever. And then once I've let all the sounds come through and sort of processed them, then I will move on to what do I feel? Do I feel the sun? Or do I feel mosquitoes? Do I feel, is it humid? Is it sweaty? Am I sitting on a hard bench, or just paying attention to all that? But then also, how do I feel inside my body? Like, is my neck tense? Do I need to, do some shoulder rolls or some stretches, and just sort of make sure everything's feeling pretty good and check in with all of that. And then after that, I will check in with my sense of smell. And in the city, there's lots of smells. You might smell perfume or coffee from a coffee shop, or food, or gas. And in the country, I don't know all the adjectives for the smells that you smell, but like wet grass smells a certain way, and decaying logs smell a certain way. And so you just sort of tap into all of that. And then once you've done all that, you're pretty centered in the current moment in life as it's unfolding around you. And then you can tune into your sense of sight. And you might, scan your environment and just sort of look around until something draws your attention. And then that's when you bring in curiosity. So you would be like, oh, my attention's lingering here. What is it about that drew my attention? Is it the way the light hit it? Is it the color? Is it the texture? Does it contrast with something that's near it? And then that's the subject that you'll try to make a photograph of. And then I think, was it Chris who mentioned this? Like, my ginkgo tree thing. This was like this is like such a perfect example of that, because I was waiting for my son. I was picking him up from UVA to bring him back to, for Thanksgiving and for the rest of the semester. And so I was waiting for him, and I just noticed this yellow tree that just sort of popped out from the environment. And it was surrounded by buildings, and there was like a highway, and then there's this other structure nearby. So it was surrounded by a lot of unattractive stuff. And that would not have, if I had included that in my picture, it would not have shown what drew me to the tree. And so as I got closer to the tree, like, to get this picture, I had to walk around. Like, I took several images, and then in some of them, the yellow wasn't quite as vibrant because the sun wasn't filtering through it. So basically the point is, it took curiosity. Like, this tree attracted me. It drew my attention, and how do I convey that so that other people can see what I saw? Because if I had taken a picture when it first drew my attention, it would have included the highway, other elements in it. So I had to get closer, and then to sort of show the light quality, I had to walk around it, and I had to get directly underneath it and look up in order to get the image that told, what I saw in this tree. And that reminds me of one of my favorite poems. Well, it's a fragment of one of Mary Oliver's poems. And these are her instructions for living a life, which is to, number one, pay attention, and two, to be astonished, and then three, to tell about it. So I don't know if you don't know Mary Oliver. She's a photographer whose poems are about nature. And that's what she does. She goes out into the woods or the fields, and she observes, and she takes it all in, and then she uses words to tell about it. And as photographers, what we do is we use images. We create images to tell what we saw and what really amazed us. And that whole point of how it takes a little bit of effort. I mean, no one can just take a bunch of words, throw them down on paper, and end up with a poem. You got to sort of resort them and rearrange them and play with them. And it's the same thing with photography. You can't just point your camera in the general vicinity of what interested you and get an image that reflects what you saw. It takes a little, effort. Okay, so here's another example. This is sort of like I guess an example. It's too bad I didn't think of this course back when I was doing the ginkgo tree, because that would have been a good example. But so I was walking my dog, and something drew my attention, and I just pointed my camera towards it and took this picture. And so, I mean, what do you guys think my subject was? just drop in the chat if you have a guess. Yeah. I mean, it was the tree, but it's a terrible picture because it's got all of these other distracting elements, like the side of the, can you guys see my cursor? Like the side of the building here. And you wouldn't know that necessarily. Like maybe I'm planning to put a window on the side of my house and I was interested in this window here. Or maybe I'm planning to put a deck on my house and this is actually a photograph of the deck. And it was the tree. I was walking my dog and I noticed the red holly berries on the tree because they're only there for like a week because then the birds come in and just sort of strip the tree bare. So that's what I wanted to take a picture of. So I had to get closer. And then the initial picture that I took, the townhouse is still behind it. So it still was a distracting element. So I had to walk around the tree so that the tree was framed by the blue. So in this picture on the left, it's it's a better picture. It's got a nice triangle shape and you can tell that I'm photographing the tree, right? But it was really the berries that I was most interested in. So when I looked at this tree picture, I was like, yeah, but it doesn't really show what I saw, which was the berries. So then I got in closer and I got the picture of the berry. So this is one of my favorite strategies, which is filling the frame with my subject so that I'm removing all the extraneous elements. But sometimes the background is actually part of what you want to convey. So here's another picture. And in this one, so in the picture on the left, I wanted to take a headshot. I just wanted to show the girl. I liked the way the light, how she was backlit. I liked her expression. I liked the hair falling in front of her. So that's the picture that I took. But I also knew that I was at a park, which was, a place that she and her family spent a lot of time, and they wanted the park and this dock to be in the picture. So I, pulled back to include the elements which told the story of where she was. And I left out, there's like a family fishing, like right beyond her feet here. And so, you have to finagle a little bit to get the picture that you want. Yeah, and that's really the most important thing, because as the photographer, everything that ends up in the little frame of your image is up to you. Like you can, you've got like 360 degrees around you. You've got like all the angles up and down, and then every angle in between. Like there's a bajillion ways that you could point your camera and create an image. And so what you're doing by following your attention and creating the image and the story that you want is you're taking a tiny little slice and you're preserving it on your sensor, your lens. I guess the basic takeaway from that is when you're taking pictures and you're looking at the back of the camera, I would not ask, like for the purposes of well-being and doing these exercises, I wouldn't ask, is this a good picture? I would ask, does this photograph capture the subject the way I saw it? Will the viewer understand what I saw? Because the photograph is your way of telling about the thing that you observed. So what do you do if the first picture you took didn't really tell what you saw? And that's when you start getting curious and you start asking questions and you start getting closer and you start asking yourself, well, what if I try this? What if I do this? And one of the best ways to, show a different perspective is to change your perspective, because most people, when they're taking pictures, they tend to be standing and they have when they see something they like, they lift their camera to their eye and then they click. And if the thing is high, they'll go up, and if it's low, they'll go down, but they don't really change their perspective from standing. And so one of the things you can do as a photographer is change that perspective, like get lower, like literally on the ground or higher, stand on something and look down. And some of these perspectives are so popular, they have names. So we have the worm's eye view, which is getting down very low and shooting up. And you can shoot up at the subject or get under the subject for your picture. That would be worm's eye view. But the picture of the cat is an example of getting low to the ground and shooting your subject directly on their level. And it's an effective viewpoint because most people, like I have, even me sometimes, and I know this, but sometimes like half the pictures on my phone of my dog are her, me standing and looking down at her. And so when I get down on her level, it's a completely different image. And it can be useful for capturing the story you want to tell. And then the other point of view would be bird's eye view, which is when you shoot down on your subject. And it's not just aerial photography. You could be standing and shooting down at your feet, or, just sort of lean over a rose or a flower to photograph a butterfly. And then the other thing that you can do is just sort of, work your subject, which is this idea of walking around it and just keep exploring the different perspectives and taking pictures and asking yourself, is this it? Is this what I'm seeing? Does this say what I want it to say? And one really important part of that, walking around, is noticing how the light changes, because the light can dramatically change the way a picture looks. Like these two pictures on top, the sun is behind me and shining on the sunflower. So the colors are rich and really saturated. But as I started walking around, I really love these two images down here. I'm just obsessed with backlighting because look how glowy the petals look here. That just really captured me. And then how the light just brings out the texture on the edge of the sunflowers down there. So that's another way, if you're not getting the picture that you want, just keep being curious. Well, what if I try this? What if I try this? What if I try this? How far are we into the...
We're at about 10:28 right now, so
Oh, that's perfect.
halfway through.
Wow. Okay. So now is the time for you guys to do a photo walk. So you can let's take maybe 10 minutes, because then when you come back, I want to, I have one little closing segment, and then we can do Q&A, and or if you want to talk about how this went. But I want you guys to, with your camera for 10 minutes. So we'll come back at like 10 minutes from now, 40 minutes after the hour, come back, and then we'll resume the conversation. But in the photo walk, what I want you to do, photo walks can be, 3 hours long in the mountains, or they can be 5 minutes around your house. In fact, I did that for a blog post because I'm doing this 28-day blog challenge and I needed content. So I walked around my house and did a photo walk, and then I wrote about it. But basically, I want you, before you start this walk, to do that whole grounding exercise and sort of turn your brain off, get into your body, into the moment, and then follow your attention and be curious about where it leads you, where your attention leads you, and then try making some photos.
Angela.
Oh, you're so loud. Hi.
Just took the coolest photo of my life.
Yay!
So awesome. That was so fun.
Yay! I'm so glad to hear that. Good. I put a link in the chat for it's a photo walk journal. It's 7 days of photo walk. So you can, if you want, you can print it out and, put some of your pictures in it and write about your reflections. And for me, I think there's a lot of value to printing your images, even if you're just printing them on your printer and cutting them out. I mean, it's just different to hold an image than to see it on a screen. And then I feel the reflection is important too, because our brains are busy. We are taking in so much information every day. And if we don't pause for a moment to just sort of move this stuff out of short-term memory into long-term memory and just reflect, we're just going to forget, it's just going to be oh, that was nice. And then something else comes on and we probably won't remember this unless we see a book in the bookstore that's mindful photography or something like that. So I do encourage, when I'm teaching, my students to be active in printing pictures and reflecting on their experiences. And sometimes it can guide choices that they make in the future. So the other part of photography, we talked about awareness and curiosity, and there's also this element of acceptance that I found really interesting. And part of that is being willing to accept and tolerate a certain amount of discomfort. And so what do I mean by that? I feel like a lot of people are pretty self-conscious of taking photographs. And I was in Japan like 30 years ago with my sister, and we were taking a tour. And so the tour guide would literally stop in front of things, like was pointing out all the Kodak moments for us, right? And so dutifully, we all would take pictures of whatever she had pointed to us. And so this was a Torii Gate. I mean, this is not my picture because I did not have time to go through all of my real pictures down in the basement and find my Torii Gate one, but it's sort of the general idea. So we all took the picture of the Torii Gate, and then the group was moving away, and I noticed this little statue that was sort of hidden in this bush. And I was curious, like it caught my attention, and I was curious, and I walked over to it. And then my sister's like, "What are you doing? We're going this way," you know, like, because I was just new to this and I didn't want to be uncomfortable. I didn't want to hold up the group. I was like, well, if this was really cool, other people would be taking pictures of it too. So maybe it's not that interesting. I didn't trust my vision. I just, moved on with the group, when really it would have taken me, what, half a minute? There was a way to take the picture, but I just didn't want to be uncomfortable. And I was just feeling very self-conscious. Then I was thinking that when I got home, like, my pictures were going to look just like everybody else's pictures. Like, we all got the same pictures on this tour, right? And photographs should mean something to you. Like, ideally, they're reflecting your vision. So when you look back on it, it means something. You remember where you were and why you took it and how you felt. So here, all I remember is that I'm standing there taking a picture that everybody else is taking. It's not really engaging with the moment or my surroundings. And so that's, I think, part of acceptance is accepting discomfort and pushing through it. Sometimes when you are taking photographs, you might have to look a little strange to get the picture you want. Like, I remember there's this one time I was photographing a fire hydrant on my street, and a neighbor walked by and like laughed at me, right? Like, what are you doing? Because it's just, and so you just have to be able to accept that in the pursuit of your telling the world about what you see. And so, like, this picture, I loved it because my mom, she was visiting me from Thailand, and I was doing worm's eye view a couple times when we were out and about, and she was always making fun of me, and I just didn't pay her any mind, and I kept taking my picture. And then when we came to these bluebells, she was just so smitten. And I turn around and there she is. She's thrown herself across the path to get her pictures with her phone. I guess one caveat to that would be safe. Like, I don't want anyone hanging off the edge of a cliff or a bridge or doing anything that might be unsafe. But it's certainly okay to look a little strange and to do something unusual to give your vision expression. And that sort of leads me to the third point, which is giving your inner critic the day off. You don't want that part of your brain activated at all, which is why when you're looking at your pictures, not judging, is it good or not, but just, does it say what I'm trying to say, or does it show what I saw? You can't do photography wrong. If it's a self-expressive exercise, it's impossible to do it wrong. The idea is that you're in the moment and you're responding to the moment, and then you tell about the moment by making your image. I guess the other counterpoint to that is sometimes you may not be able to get the image you want, and it might be because of the lighting. It might be because of the limitations of your photo equipment. Like, some lenses, you can't get that close to your subject, or other lenses, you might not be able to zoom in, and you might not be able to walk closer to your subject. And sometimes, the timing is just off. But in that case, just sort of let it roll off your back, right? Because there's going to be a million more opportunities for you to make photographs. And every photographer takes photos that they don't like, they just delete them. And every photographer misses moments, that's just, you're going to miss some, but you capture others. And so just have fun with that and give your inner critic a break. And so we're at the conclusion. When I was trying to pull this together, like all the ways that photography has enhanced well-being, first, coming into awareness and into the present moment, that's great because you're getting out of your head. And your head is always super busy. Like I think I mentioned earlier, it's either planning or thinking or ruminating, or it's just, processing, assessing for threats. It's doing all these things. And I heard this analogy once of, like climbing a mountain with a huge backpack full of rocks or food, or I don't know, camping gear or whatever. And then setting it down for 30 minutes is, when you pick it back up, you feel refreshed, more energized, and it's just really good for you if you're trying to get up the mountain with all this gear. And the same thing, I think, with our mental well-being, like to just sort of disengage our brain and play and be present for a little while is really good for our mental health. And then this idea of being curious, I like this idea of sort of honoring our own intuition and our own perceptions, as opposed to, sort of shutting them down as not relevant or not worth it because we have all these important things to do. So, because it's playful and exploratory, I feel like that's been really helpful to my well-being. And then the acceptance, like I feel like there's been sort of the spillover effect. It's also cyclical, like what impacts what, but just this idea of being able to tolerate discomfort and being braver in my personal life, because like doing a workshop like this was not something that I had on my radar or could have ever imagined. Like I used to have all these blogs that were under pseudonyms and things, and I'm bringing them all under my umbrella and owning them. I started a newsletter. I'm doing this workshop. And so I just think it's all really healthy and really good and just makes life a little better. So that is all I have for you guys, I think. Let me see, is that my own slide? Yeah, okay, so questions. Do you have any questions, or do you guys have any thoughts? Oh, are we already, I guess we've only got 6 minutes. So just make sure you grab the workbook in the chat, and then if you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear them.
Thank you very much for this inspiring workshop. I really took, I think in this 10 minutes already 3 pictures I really laugh and enjoy, and it's something you said really shifted my perspective. I think I have to digest it a little bit, but what it's exactly, but something happened and it's really great. So thank you very much. And I wanted to ask you one question, because I sometimes feel a little bit conflicted when I'm in a scene which is makes me feel very good to either be there 100% and enjoy it and take it in, or take out the phone and make a photo. But I always feel like it's bringing like immediate distance to that scene. I'm not fully part of it anymore then, because I look through the lens. I'm occupied with technical stuff. So I was wondering, is that something you do not have as a professional photographer, or do you sometimes leave a photo and do not take it because you prefer to be 100% present in that moment, or how is that for you?
Yeah, it's definitely a a balance and a decision in the moment, right? But I think if I'm doing a photo walk, then my intention from the outset is to explore my environment through photography, right? If I'm on a hike and I'm with my family or being present with them, or sitting on a rock and just enjoying the environment, then it takes a lot for me to pull out my camera, because I do think it's important to be in the moment. I'm thinking of like school performances when kids are performing or doing something on the stage, and their parents just have this little camera up and they're not present because they have to hold the camera. And so my way around that is to just have a little tripod and stick the little thing on the tripod, and then I can attend while my camera is recording. But it is really hard to do both. And if you are thinking about the photograph, it does detach you from the moment. But I think staying in the same mindset, like you were talking about all the technical things, like once you start worrying about the technical aspects of photography, which are important, but I'm telling you, these phone cameras and most modern cameras on their auto setting can do a pretty good job. yeah, then that's another level of removal from the setting and from the environment.
Thanks.
No, thank you so much. This was fun. I was starting off thinking like I don't have anything to photograph here in my room, but you look around, you can find something somewhere.
Yeah.
Angela, kudos to you to actually be able to do a photo walk virtually with other people on Zoom. I never thought that would be possible. It was incredible.
Did you walk around your apartment?
I actually did, and so I've been a photographer for the past 10 years or so, freelancing.
Yeah, his pictures are great. They're
Thank you.
beautiful. Check out his
Thank
blog.
you. And so I've been having this I'm trying to reconnect with photography in a personal level, since I'm not doing professionally since the pandemic started. And I'm always struggling with, like, if I don't have my camera with me, like I like, these phones are pretty good, but I'm always like, if I pick up my phone, I can do 300 other things with my phone, including taking a photograph.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I always have a hard time using my phone intentionally to photograph things, but I want to be able to do that because I don't want to carry my camera all the time.
Yeah.
And there's things in my apartment that I'm always like, this would be a nice photograph, but I never took the time to do it. So today I did it, and it was great. So
Good.
it's all about being intentional, I guess. It was very powerful.
Great.